Broccoli, probably the most famous of the traditional brassica plants. Grown for its fruiting tree-like structures, over 70% of the world's broccoli is actually grown in China and India. As a cool season annual, broccoli is very easy to grow at home. It's best grown from transplants such as this. So let's put our self-sufficiency hats on and plant some fall broccoli. As we mentioned, broccoli is a cool season crop that tolerates a moderate amount of frost only after the plant has been established. It needs a moist, rich, well-drained, pH-neutral soil that's free of weeds, yet relatively high in organic matter. In my opinion, that's perfect for some no-till planting, so let's take this 2x6 bed and get right to it. One of the immediate benefits and challenges of a no-dig and no-disturb type of gardening is that you start to pay more attention to the garden itself and the life within it. Sure, I could have taken a rotavator and mashed up the top layer of soil into oblivion in under 5 minutes, but easier doesn't always mean better. To prepare a no-till bed is actually quite easy. I first cut down any and all weeds right off at the root collar, and then I go ahead and lightly level the bed with a hard rake. After the bed is level, a weed barrier such as newspaper, cardboard, or craft paper like I'm using here should be used to suppress any new weed growth. It really works, and even the most crazy weed-infested gardens can be cleaned and protected in minutes. For this planting of broccoli, I'm going to put a 2-inch layer of compost right on top of that paper to give my transplants the perfect conditions for planting. I really do need to invest in some sharper scissors. You're going to want this compost layer to be as level as possible. Trust me, it'll make for much easier planting. If your compost is as booming as mine is, watch out for these guys. There's that life again. I can already feel that this bed is going to perform beyond expectations this fall. There you go, little buddy. Water that surface thoroughly so that when we place our bare-rooted transplants right on the surface, transplant shock isn't an issue. Now that we have a perfect landing pad for our transplants, without actually disturbing the soil in that bed, let's look at the potting mix that we're going to need to complete the planting. The potting mix for this is quite simple and is the same mix that you'd be using if you were planting the broccoli up into pots or containers. Start with a 50-50 mix of coconut fiber and your compost. As a base, it'll be perfectly fine to use just like this. But we're not here for perfectly fine. So let's add some amendments such as alfalfa meal, canola meal, rock dust, rock phosphate, and Epsom salts. I mix these amendments at a ratio of 10% of my total soil volume. As you can see here, I've added in some extra crushed oyster shells. I like to add them sometimes for more calcium and more trace minerals. Take your time and really mix it up good and thoroughly. What we're after here is a perfect homogeneous mixture so that all of our plants have access to all the same nutrients. What an amazing mix. Better than anything that you could ever buy at the store. With our potting soil all made up, we're finally ready for some planting. You can make your own transplants for virtually any brassica, but you have to plan ahead. I like to get my broccoli in the ground a full 3 to 4 weeks before my first fall frost date, which means you'll want to be sowing your seeds indoors roughly 10 weeks before that first fall frost. Now you can see that as gardeners, we're always working on the next season's responsibilities. Conversely, you can also buy your broccoli transplants. They're readily available, and in fact, with the interest in gardening in the fall significantly less than it is in the spring, they're actually quite inexpensive. Whichever source of plants you choose, final planting is the same. Gently coax out your broccoli transplant out of its pot without fully tugging on that stem. They're actually quite brittle. Now that you have your transplanter plug free, go ahead and just place it right on that soil surface. Easy stuff. Keep working down the bed, placing and spacing the broccoli plants at least 10 to 12 inches apart. Yes, they're small now, but they quickly grow and grow and grow. The wet compost layer allows us to really set those plants in place and have them stay there perfectly upright. With your plants nicely spaced and in place, let's go ahead and finish off the planting. Taking that supreme potting mix that we made up, go ahead and bury those root balls right up to the stem. 2 to 3 shovel loads of the mix per plant should be just fine. This part is really easy and quite satisfying. Just seeing those plants perfectly set up in their new digs, fully planted, ready to grow. The entire bed should only take about 5 minutes, roughly 20 to 30 seconds per plant max. Last one, just as that batch of soil was running out. Perfect. Before we continue on, let's firmly press down those soil mounds to complete the planting. With the plants sitting here quite high like this, it's a good idea to press them snugly down into place. Dang, that's some nicely planted broccoli, if I do say so myself. Of course, we're not going to leave the bed exposed like that. Always, 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 no matter the season or the climate, you're going to want to mulch. A fresh batch of green grass and leaf clippings should do the trick nicely. Lay that mulch on thick, 4 inches or so is perfect. Remember, winter is coming and you really don't want to skimp on this step. You may have noticed that in the cooler months, I often switch between green grass and straw as a mulch. There's a method to my madness. For plants entering a state of dormancy and plants that I want to stall their growth, straw is the mulch of choice. But in the case of the broccoli here, the grass is going to do 2 things as it starts to break down. It's going to shed valuable nitrogen right back into that top layer of soil, and it's also going to generate heat in addition to its insulating properties. Good stuff for a crop that is actively growing. One last final task, go ahead and give your broccoli a super soaking. Really water it good, helping those roots to have the best environment possible to expand and grow. Here's a visual recap of the entire process, condensed into about 17 seconds. Broccoli really is one of the staples of fall gardening. With the reduced pests at this time of year, as well as the reduced weeds, especially using this no-till method of gardening, growing broccoli in the fall is really easy and it's really rewarding. Give it a try. Also, if any of you are on Facebook, head on over and join our gardening group called Growing Better. The group has grown phenomenally fast, yet it will never lose its sense of community or its welcoming feel. If you're passionate about growing epic organic fruits, herbs, and veggies for you and your family, the Growing Better group is a great place to hang out, share, learn, and grow. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. If you're getting value in this and the other series that I'm doing on YouTube, hit those like, share, and subscribe buttons if you'd be so kind, and I'll see you in the next video.